Well, good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending upon what part of the country you're in. I'm Daryl Ferguson, Director of Performance Management at Xtime. So excited that you've taken a little bit of time out of your day-to-day to join us for our continuing webinar series for Xtime Spectrum. Today, we're going to be focused on best practices, improving your upsell closing rate. I'm sure it's a topic near and dear to most of your hearts. I know it was mine back in my retail days. We're going to give everybody about 30 more seconds to get logged in. Seems like they've got a lot of traffic pulling in right now at the beginning of the webinar. So we'll let everyone get settled, and then we'll get started here in about 20 seconds. Okay, we'll give everyone about 10 more seconds to get logged in. We got a lot, looks like still flowing in there. All right. Again, introduce myself. I'm Daryl Ferguson, Director of Performance Management. I'm really happy to be here with you today. We have our special guest presenter, which is Tiffani Stefanescu. She's one of our senior performance managers on our team. So we're gonna hear from her in just a second. Before we get started, just a couple of notes of housekeeping. Since we have so many folks on the webinar today, and car dealerships are generally pretty loud places, we do have everybody on mute in the audience. That doesn't mean, however, that we don't want to hear from you. So in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see a question tab. Just click that open, and at any point throughout the presentation, you have any questions about what we're talking about in the presentation or questions in general, we're happy to take those questions. So throughout the presentation, I'll pause Tiffani between different sections, and we'll try to take those questions as close to real time as we can. And then, of course, we'll stick around at the end and answer as many questions as you would like. We expect the presentation today to run around 30 to 40 minutes at the most, so we'll get you back to your productive day as quickly as we can. So that being said, I'm going to reintroduce Tiffani Stefanescu. She's one of our senior performance managers, and came to me with this great idea for creating a webinar for some tips and tricks and best practices around upsells and closing more of them, which I think is fantastic. So that being said, I'm going to hand it over to you, Tiffani. Take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, Daryl. Hello, everyone. Pleased to have your time. I appreciate you taking time out of your hectic day to join me. So kind of a little background on me. I've been with Xtime going on 9 years. The reason this topic especially was very important to me is because I've seen a lot of success in my experiences over the past 9 years of what effective processes can do when it comes to closing rates. One of them off the top of my head was a dealer group, just so you kind of get a little background. You know, back when I started working with them, the way they would upsell on recommendations was the old-fashioned give the customer a call and try to chase them all day on the phone. But we all know not just the world we live in with COVID, but in general, a lot more people are on their phones, they're at work on their computers. There's just a lot more effective ways to approach it, and in the end up with a higher close rate. So let's go ahead and dig right in. As far as the agenda goes today, we're going to be talking about effectively upselling on the drive through the Engage tool, best practices for making impactful recommendations, streamlining the customer recommendation presentation, and building a decline follow-up process. All right. So the why. On average, 1 in 3 customers right now, as you all know, in the stores on the drive, they require more work than what they had originally scheduled for. We're trying in the long run to increase their dollars per RO and then improve retention. You know, with decline services, we can now track these, get those customers back in. If they did decline on the spot, hopefully get them back in to get those completed in the near future. All right, so how do we use Engage, which is the iPad, on the drive to effectively upsell? The biggest thing with Engage is we want to target services that can easily be pointed out. We're right there, the advisor's on the drive with the customer. Let's go with the things that the customer can see and that the advisor can show them physically right there on the drive. So as it pertains like seasonal service targets, depending on what part of the country you're in, you might have had a pretty intense winter. Wiper blades, tires, you know, right there on the drive. Now we have this integration with Hunter where we will pull in the Hunter reading through and into Engage. With that being said, this does require specific software, so I recommend checking with your Hunter rep. But just by targeting those specific services, make it one or two so it's not a lot for the advisors. I know they're trying to get the customers in and out, but let's make the most of this tool that we have and the tools that we're using on the drive and try to make a little bit of money through that Engage tablet, especially with alignments. Taking this a step further, on our Engage app, not only do we pull in your manufacturer menus, we can also build out custom dealership menus. In my experience as a performance manager, I love good, better, best menu presentation. You know, it's funny, I was talking to my husband the other day, we were shopping around for cable, and I realized I was a product of the good, better, best consumer attitude. We were offered 3 packages. You had the good package with Xfinity that has like your basic cable. You had the better, which has about 150, and then the best, which is just like an extravagant amount of channels, like 500. Well, of course, we didn't want the base. We didn't need 500 channels. We went for that better package. The same is true on the drive. I mean, when you look at customers and, you know, this vehicle is their investment, they want to do the proper work. So they're not going to want to just do the base that's required. 9 times out of 10, they'll go for that better. And you might even have those cases where they do go for the best, which, as y'all know, is just an increase in that dollar per RO average. Here's a little bit of a visual of what that looks like. This is a store that does have that good, better, best. So normal mileage, that's going to be your factory package. And then they added in addition, you know, like BG services, flushes for the better, and then the best. And again, y'all don't have to do the legwork on this. We do have a team where you can work with your performance manager and we'll get these menus built out for you. All right. In addition to menus, we do have integration with Dealer Tire. The great thing about this is right there on the drive, you have access to your manufacturer rebates, what tires you actually have in stock, the ones that you don't have in stock, the ones that you sell. And then also you can compare it so the customer can shop right there on the drive. They love having that power where they can choose which tires they want to go with. All right, taking things a step further. So best practices for making impactful recommendations. Let's take a little bit of a deep dive in here. So the first thing is, you know, you want to check in their RO history, see if the most recent maintenance was completed. The recommended services most commonly needed at that interval are things I always suggest. If you're a store that's newer on Inspect, this is a great way to kind of get the technician's feet wet. Have them come up with a specific set of services at each major interval that you want them to be looking at specifically and or recommending. Based on the season too, if they are struggling with making those additional recommendations, have them focus on 1 or 2 services necessary for that season, like cabin filters, going back to alignments again, tires, and just making it simple, narrowed down, but there's still effective recommendations that typically are needed when that vehicle comes in for service. And then this is just a little look at the winter suggestions based on AAA. Same thing goes for summer. Now that we're entering into those summer seasons, I'll zoom in on this. So the engine radiator, AC systems, maybe an AC refresh, those type of services are great to drive when you're using that inspection tool and making recommendations. In addition to that, so if you do have our Inspect tool, we have the mobile app. It's just called Xtime Mobile. It comes with Inspect. It's no additional cost. Through that app, your technicians can capture photos and video of any recommendations. So maybe it's a dirty cabin filter. Have the technician take a picture of that, show it to the customer. It can be sent in our quote tool, which we'll get to a little bit later. But it's great to just have that media on on record, and then that way the customer can see for themselves what it looks like. All right. So I find this piece very important for me personally, over recommending. So let's just take a journey as a customer. You know, majority of customers, when they come in for their first service, they're not going to need an additional service recommendation. They're just coming in for that oil change. So best practice, we find you're not really going to want to recommend anything additional on that first service. So let's just set that culture right there from that customer's first experience. They get in, they don't feel like they're constantly being sold something. But hey, I get it. We're trying to make money on the drive, and I know flushes, they can do that. But let's come up with more strategic ways to recommend on flushes. You know, one of my stores that I used to work with, their technicians would recommend 3 to 4 flushes on one RO. Why not spread that out? You know, especially with manufacturers like Mazda, where they recommend that fuel induction service at 60,000 miles. Recommend it at that point and just that flush, and then you can use the manufacturer to back you as the advisor tries to close on it. Hey, Mr. Smith, you know, Mazda recommends this fuel induction flush, says right here in the manual, do you want to go ahead and get this done today? So, and if you're not in the case of Mazda, like I said, don't try to overwhelm the customer. We want them to trust us. We want them to come back. Customer retention is how we survive within the service industry. So just be cautious of the technicians that are recommending. If you are on Inspect and you're seeing an ASR rate that's above 80% and your mileage is close to that 50,000, I would just keep an eye out and see what type of recommendations they're making and ensure that we're not overwhelming those customers and trying to oversell them constantly. All right, so this is what I touched on. This was basically the big why behind why I wanted to talk about this: streamlining the customer recommendation presentation. You know, a lot of the culture has always been just pick up the phone and talk and try to talk to the customer. But you know, in the world we live in now, it's not that easy. A lot of times, me personally, if I don't know who's calling me or I don't know that number, I don't answer it. So now we have the capabilities to communicate via email, via text. Let's use them. So as far as that goes, I 120% back that your advisors are sending any and all recommendations that are needed to the customer every single time. Maybe they just want to send email or text. You can send both, but I just think it's so important to get those in front of the customer. And in addition, as a consumer, they love to feel like they're in control. That gives them the option to decide yes or no on their own without the advisor having to be right in front of them. And if you're wondering where that quote tool is, it's going to be in the RO and Inspect, and it's that little money symbol. Fun fact that should help make things a little bit easier for advisors: have them right click it and open it in a new tab. That way they don't have to go back into Inspect and hit refresh again. Just saves them a little bit of time. I know a lot of advisors, when I was we first rolled this out, they said, well, it's an extra step. I have to go back in and refresh the Inspect screen. Well, they can actually open that in a new tab, and it will not affect their Inspect screen. So a little bit earlier, I talked about the media. We want to include any helpful media in that quote that's getting sent to the customer, whether it be that dirty filter, the tire treads, if you can get a picture of it. Also, what's nice too, sometimes with Inspect, you'll see an ASR come over as other, and then it will have a really intense service description that most customers aren't going to know what that is. Here's one example. So antenna mast. As a customer, they're probably not sure what exactly that means. Your advisors can send a personalized message with the quote just saying, you know, this is why it's needed. This is what gets done when this service is completed. That way it's a little bit more personal, and it also explains the why to the customer when they're looking at it. And this picture here is an example of what the quote would look like with media attached. As far as tracking goes from a manager perspective, we do have a column right on your inspect dashboard. It's kind of small. It's hidden in plain sight, but it makes a world of difference for tracking these. And it is live. So this Q column, anytime you see, there's going to be 3 letters you can see or a blank. Blank means nothing has been sent. So this one didn't have a quote. The B means that both an email and text were sent to the customer with their recommendations. S down here means SMS text only. And then you may also see E for email only. So B for both, S for text only, E for email only. And like I said, this is live. So as your ROs are going through the process, you can see right there in any of the modes which have received a quote, and ping your advisor or ask your advisor, hey, why wasn't this quote sent yet? And stay on top of it. So what happens, when you send the quote? I think it's really important as a team that you determine a wait period from sending the quote and then trying to contact the customer. From my experience, the most efficient time frame I found is about 3 to 5 minutes from sending the quote. If there is no response, advisors should definitely try calling and/or sending a text through the message center. So that message center is going to be that little text bubble that you'll see at the top of the screen at all times. And the nice thing with that message center, let me pull up, you've probably seen these little text chat boxes. These 3 buttons can each be modified. So I've had stores change like the call button, for example, to just say ASR follow-up. And that way when they click it, it will populate with a default message in there. For example, hi, customer's name, which that will then pull in their name. Just following up, I had sent over additional service recommendations your vehicle needs. Do you want us to proceed with those, or did you have any questions? Something of that nature. Everything's customizable, but just an idea. So that way your advisors aren't constantly on the phone trying to call them all day. They can also shoot over a follow-up text. Okay. One thing I do want to point out, so we want to ensure that we are accurately approving and declining the ASRs, and I see this very often. So for example, sometimes technicians or advisors, they'll either approve or decline, but what will happen is when they approve it, they'll drag it up to your primary lines. Do not do that. If the customer was not originally coming in for that service, keep it as an additional service recommendation. If you're wondering why, it's so we can track that. So if they do decline that service, we know that they declined it and it was an additional service recommendation that they were coming in for. And in retrospect, we can see which advisors are upselling on additional services that customer did not originally schedule for. So it is common. I don't know why it becomes sometimes a tendency to do, but just keep any additional service recommendations separate from your primary lines that the original appointment was coming in for. Okay, so taking a step further, yeah.
Let's break it real quick, Tony. Folks, if you joined us late, if you have any questions, please put them in the question bar. If you just open your control panel, it'll say questions. Just drop them in there. We're happy to answer those. And I'll try to interrupt Tiffani when I can to get those questions in. So any questions you have about anything so far, just throw them in there. We'd love to address those. Okay, don't see any yet, but go ahead, Tiffani, and I'll probably be rude and interrupt you again. So sorry about that.
No, you're good. I have 2 toddlers. I'm used to it. Okay, so let's say, a lot of times we think the closing needs to be done on site, but the beauty about having Xtime is we can have a future close. So how do we maintain a decline follow-up process that's effective and does end in a closing? So what we do, if you are on invite, we recommend 100% setting up our decline service follow-up. What I've seen in my experience is 3 programs are the most effective. Typically the first one's anywhere from 5 to 7 days after the customer has come in. And then the second one is about 2 weeks out. And then the third and final one is a month out. So what I've seen too is some of my stores that have had the highest closing and the most effective response to these type of programs is having the most aggressive discount first and then reducing it, because then the customer is going to feel like, oh no, I'm going to run out of time. You know, I missed that first opportunity. I had the best discount. Maybe I'll hop on this one, and then they'll schedule it that second decline service email. So just an idea when you are playing around with your invite programs and ideas to think about having a discount set up at those three different emails being sent. And then this is what they look like. All right. Another thing you could do if you don't have invite, in your reports, you can pull the most declined services for a specific time frame. And what I would recommend is run a promotion for those. Whether you are on invite or not, if you are on invite, your invite manager can get that promotion set up. If not, you know, just reaching out to customers, maybe have someone that can give them a call and let them know, hey, we're running a special for this service. We saw that you declined it a few weeks ago. Would you like to come in and get that done now? And again, you can see that right from the scoreboard. This is where this snippet is from. It's going to be to the bottom right, or you can run a custom report for the most declined services. And here is where that custom report will be found. So it's in the reports tab, and then you'll go down to the very bottom that says custom reports, and then all declined ASR. Or maybe you specifically, you know, what type of services you do want to target. Maybe you're ready to do a cabin filter special or a fuel induction promotion. You can target and search just those services that were declined, and we can export that to Excel for you. I have a lot of stores right now actually targeting tires now that winter's over, to get the either alignments done. So they'll pull all the declined alignments or tire replacements if they had red tire tread, to try to get those customers back in. That way you can kind of see a little closer. I know the screen might be small. All right, questions?
We've got a few, absolutely, that have come in. Let me get this queued up here. So David has a question about going back to dragging lines. And he says that he's say the line the tech puts in is for diag. Should we pull that line up? So let me clarify that, what Tiffany was saying there. Yes, if a customer comes in and your primary concern is let's just say battery diagnosis, whatever it is, and the repair for that is put in, yes, that repair that addresses that primary concern should absolutely be drug up with that line. But any additional recommendations need to stay as additional recommendations for the exact reasons Tiffany explained, for decline service follow-up and proper tracking of it. But if you leave primary lines or corrections that are things that correct primary lines, and you leave those as ASRs, then that also overinflates your closing percentage, right, Tiffany?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
So you want to make sure that we're associating them properly, I think is the important thing. And also, if you do drag a declined ASR line up to the primary area, then there is no follow-up. There is no decline, because it doesn't look at primary lines. It only looks at additional service recommendations. So, you know, in an effort to try to recapture those or upsell those, that would be the reason we would do it. And David, you also said, personally, none of my advisors have moved the lines to the top. Well, typically, you would want to really dig into that, because another problem that can cause is if you are using the quote, David, think about it like this. If they come in for that battery concern and you leave the replaced battery as an ASR, but you also find a cabin filter, and you also find wiper blades, and you also find baby brakes, when you present the quote, that battery may not be the first thing on the list. So as a consumer, if I'm looking at that and I brought my car in because I've got a problem with my battery, but you just want to tell me about the wiper blades, the brakes, and whatever else, then mention the battery, it may make me feel uncomfortable with that. It may make me feel like you're just trying to upsell me a lot of stuff, right? So if by putting it in the primary section, it's going to show up on the quote, but it's always going to show up first. Let's see. April asked, will there be a video or a recording? Generally, so for folks in the audience today, generally we do like to include the handout in the control panel, but I had an upload problem in getting that in there today, and I apologize for that. So if you do want to copy the presentation today, I sent you an email reminder about an hour and a half ago to attend the webinar today. If you'll just respond back to that, it'll come back to me. Just say in there that you want to copy the presentation or you'd like a recording. So we also provided, we're also able to provide you a full recording of the presentation today. So April will take care of that for you. Jeff asked, is the only way that you can track this through the yellow red opcodes for declined? Is the only way that you can track this through the yellow/red opcodes for decline? Jeff, are you saying, I guess maybe I need a little more clarity on your question. Do you, Tiffany, do you understand maybe what he's asking there?
I'm thinking maybe if they're using CDK or Reynolds, if they're trying to do follow-up using the red or yellow opcodes, I would recommend, Jeff, doing the customer report if it's for like a BDC list and exporting that to Excel, because that way you have all the details of the declined service. Because if you're using just the generic yellow or red declined opcodes, it's not going to come with the description. It's just going to pull over the opcode red declined or yellow declined, if that makes sense.
Okay, hopefully, Jeff, that answers your question. If not, just go ahead and throw something more in there. Mike Richardson, Tiffany, do you recommend emailing the booklet to every customer?
I mean, emailing doesn't hurt. You can make it a part of the process. I've just found in my experience, it is another step for advisors. I would push more so the emailing and texting of the quote over the booklet.
Yeah.
Because that's going to have all the information in it too.
Yeah, the quote's going to have the booklet, right? And the quote's going to have the inspection form, and the quote's going to have any of the rich media, any photos that you take. Also, too, Mike, I think it's really important to send out those green inspections. That when we, it's a good feeling. It's like going to the dentist and having no cavities. I took my car in today. Here's my report card, and I don't know that in 2021, printing the booklet every time is the thing we need to be doing. It's probably wasteful. In most dealerships I've walked into, there's a huge pile of those sitting next to the printer that somebody forgot about, or they're in the trash in the waiting room. But emailing is always a great way to have a record of it. But selling the green is very, very important. Karen, what is the normal discount included with declined services? Do you feel offering a 21-day then a 45-day at a different discount?
It doesn't hurt, honestly, Karen. What I've found is they'll start with like a 5% discount first, or as the last, but they'll start at like a 10% first and then a 5%. So that way too, it kind of sets the culture to get it done sooner if they do have a declined service in the future, because they know, okay, that first opportunity is going to be the better discount.
Mm-hmm. Something else too, Karen, I would offer. I was reading an automotive news article. It's been a couple of years back now, but it was talking about, they had done a study, and their data had indicated that an average of 4.5 days is when the customer would make a decision on what the kind of action they were going to take. Were they going to wait, or were they going to go shop, or what were they going to do? So you really, if you're waiting 3 weeks before you hit them, you might be missing a bit of the window there. So, Tiffany's mentioned 5 days. I think that's pretty much our best practice. Try to hit them within 5 days with some type of, and whether you're into discounting or not, I think there's two schools of thought there. One thing I do know for sure, that everything is declined isn't always declined because of the price. And sending a discount to every single customer, maybe a small reward to get them to take action, but the reality is there are certain segments of our population today, namely like the millennial generation. Trust me, I'm an expert. I've got 4 millennial daughters. That if you offer them a cheaper price later, there's a trust factor. You kind of break a code with them. So I would be cautious with huge discounts for sure. But again, I don't think it's a last ditch effort at 30 or 45 days out. If you threw something out there, that's a bad thing either. But that first 5 days to 2 weeks, I think is really, really, really important. At least that's the data we've seen. Let's see here, Sean. If a quick service starts the MPI and then goes to the line tech for the mainline work, how can the line tech make the additional recommendations? Tiffani, do you want me to take that? You want to take that?
I'm just trying to wrap my head. So a quick service technician starts the MPI and then the line tech finishes it, right?
That's what he's indicating. Yeah. So how do you send it back?
Well, you would need to get the lane manager to basically either reassign the technician or have him add the recommendations for that technician.
Right. So we've got some various permissions, Sean, that would give maybe some height and levels of ability to move things around without giving them the keys to the castle. Please talk to your performance manager about that and maybe some actions you can take, because obviously if a quick service tech, you're not going to find something on every single car. But the ones that you do, or you can upsell brakes, which I think it's wonderful. We had a webinar on Tuesday talking about express service and how oftentimes we miss some of the things that we could be selling because we're not necessarily set up in quick service to do brakes or some of the heavier work. So that's a problem we can solve for you, Sean, if you'll reach out to your performance manager. And let's see. We email the final booklet and print out only the MPI page for the exit when the customer is complete. Main reason to save paper. Yeah, absolutely, David. I couldn't agree more. Getting that inspection. Now, that being said, when it comes to the quote, and I'm sure Tiffani, you can add to this, when it comes to the quote, a picture's worth a million words, 1,000 words, however many words you want to call it. A photo, a video. We've got some new capabilities. If you guys aren't aware, we've got some new capabilities. We're not here to sell you anything today, but we do have some enhanced multimedia capabilities that we didn't used to have. Video is very powerful. We've got amazing results from some of our big groups around the country that have added video, so having record months that they've never had before by simply just sending a walk around video to the customer. Show and tell is so important. But at the end of the day, if you can, I personally believe in this day and age, if you can replace it with digital media, you're far and away better off. Right, Tiffani?
Absolutely. 100%.
Let's see. It looks like we're just about out of questions.
Yeah, David Blaine had just mentioned the green inspection. Yes, David, you can now, and if y'all aren't aware, I know Daryl did mention it, you can send the green inspection via the quote tool now. Before you couldn't, but now, just like Daryl said, let the customers know they're doing a good job maintaining their vehicle. It does not hurt. That's why I keep pounding on my dealership. Send that quote, green inspection, every single RO.
Absolutely. All right, lots of great questions today, and we really appreciate your time. We in performance management, we're here for the sole purpose of helping you utilize the software in a more robust fashion, make more money, and retain customers. And we know that maybe some of these little tips and tricks will work for you, others may not. But what our sincerest hope is that you're able to take away 1 or 2 things from today's presentation that can help your operation. Maybe just write 1 more RO, sell 1 more set of blades or another brake job this month. It all adds up. And so we have a team of performance managers that are here to assist you. You all have an assigned performance manager. If you don't know who that is, we'd love to be able to get you that information and get you hooked up with them. That's my contact info as well as Tiffany's. We're always here for you, so feel free to give us a call, reach out to your performance manager. Also, too, I sent you a reminder email about an hour and a half ago. if you need anything, if you need a copy of the presentation, if you need a copy of the recording, if you just need to know if you got a question or you need to know who your performance manager is, just respond back to that, and I'll be manning that today, and I'll make sure I get all that information back to you. That being said, I don't think we have any more questions. Tiffani, fantastic job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, everybody have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you guys next month on our continuing Xtime Spectrum webinars. Have a great day.